days from now, nobody will stop me from being the one that'll throw the switch and gas you out of this life for good, you son of a bitch!
Get away from her, you bitch!
I'm connecting the bypass circuit now, sir.
Understood.
We're less than 1 million kilometers from the
And
pulsars.
we're here.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Women of Nerd Culture. I am Sarah, one of your hosts, and with me we have the lady of space and time, Becca.
Hello, everybody.
Hi. This month we said we were going to be talking about the fantasy genre. So we're looking at, magic, elves, dragons, things like that. When I sat down and thought about it, I mean, it's really such a wide and varied subject. So you've got so many different ways you could take this. Honestly, reading about fantasy sub I can't even say it. Sub-genres. Excuse me. The list was as long as my arm and then some. We've got imaginary worlds, magic, supernatural, often adventure-based. Basically anything beyond the restrictions of the real world.
Where the men have long hair.
Yeah. And don't have to be wearing full plate armor, apparently.
No.
They can just go around wearing a loincloth. It's a great genre to get lost in.
It really is. It's one of my favorites, and I'm
Yeah.
at this episode now.
Mhm.
Well, while we're still kind of early in our little podcast career, I kind of am excited to see how we kind of get going with this, because I think it's going to be a good one. We've kind of hinted at it for, I think, the last, episode 10?
I think we're on episode 10 or 11, yeah.
Yeah, I think, and we've hinted at it. We've kind of, skirted around the subject and a little in things. But I think this episode, I think we're going to get right deep into it. We're going to go on a little journey. We're not going to throw a ring in the old volcano to get rid of it. We're going to get into the juicy bits of what we kind of like about fantasy. But yes.
I mean, for me personally, there's nothing like a good fantasy game or fantasy book to just get lost in, especially when I'm struggling with what's happening. Like if I'm having a rough week or something like that,
Yes.
I will pick a game up or I'll pick a book up and just lose myself in it when I can, obviously.
Yeah, and as people are fully aware, my whole personality is Dragon Riders of Pern. So
Yeah.
I get lost quite often in Dragon Riders of Pern, because that is one of my writing communities that I've had for nearly 20 years. So I get lost quite often in fantasy anyway. But yes, I think I don't want to talk about Dragon Riders of Pern again, because I think I've done that. I think we all know that is my personality, and that is something that I really, really, really like. But I do want to talk about sort of one of the first kind of programs, I think, that I can actually ever remember in the fantasy genre, and that's Xena Warrior Princess.
Xena.
I do not think that we could have a female-led podcast without mentioning Lucy Lawless and her epic mythological program that is Xena. We could not do that. That would be impossible to do. And
an absolute icon that is Xena.
Yes, but do you know something? I didn't realise that it actually ran, because I did a little bit of research around this. I didn't actually realise that it ran for as long as it did. I didn't realise that it ran into like 2001.
Really, that late?
Yeah, 100%.
I had no idea.
And I didn't realise that it was created by Sam Raimi.
Yes, of course.
I literally was like, sat here this afternoon when I was finishing off my research, and I was like, no.
That's like one of those little bits of information that was stored kind of like here and like pushed to one side.
Yeah, and I was literally like, no, this is not how it runs. But it literally ran from 1995 to 2001, and it is such a cult classic.
It's a heck of a run as well, like
it
that.
is.
Yeah, it's a heck of a run.
for the fact that it was a female-led program, it's up
Mm.
there in the time of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and the other ones that are around that time. Buffy, you've got Sabrina the Teenage Witch, you've got Charmed was just starting roughly around
Yeah,
then.
yeah, that was late 90s, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I just think it's up there with the cult classic female-led TV shows. But for
Hmm.
anyone who doesn't really kind of know much about Xena, it's basically set in a mythological ancient world filled with gods, monsters, and legends. And I feel like Xena kind of blends some of my favorite things. It's got fantasy, action, mythology, humor, and obviously it's women-led.
A woman
Uh,
kicking ass at that.
and yes, Xena
We all know
absolutely
I'm a fan of that.
kicks ass. She is such a complex character. I fact I kind of like the fact that she was introduced as a anti-hero. She was introduced as a ruthless warlord.
Mm.
And then obviously she's introduced in Hercules. But then obviously goes on to have her own program where she's kind of helping those in need and fighting injustices. And I kind of just like this program because it's one of self-redemption. And obviously you kind of get episodes that kind of showcase her struggles, her kind of her growth, and then obviously the
Hmm.
fight to prove herself that she's something more than her past. And I can really kind of resonate with that.
Hmm.
I've had my ADHD struggles, and you kind of go for a little bit of mourning around the past, and how you were. And the more I've kind of watched Xena recently, because I've watched a little bit, researching for this episode, and it's just I just kind of love her change from villain to hero, and it's one of the most amazing aspects of the show. But I love the fact that we kind of get Xena and we get Gabrielle, and
Hmm.
we get their friendship, and then sometimes the romantic tension. And I really love the fact that Lucy Lawless and Renee O'Connor are just such amazing characters together, and they really kind of highlight the fantasy kind of genre in that, because obviously you've got the Greek element, you've got the Roman element. And anyone who knows me, I'm a history nerd. I love mythology. I love Greek goddesses and gods and goddesses. And I just love the fact that we have so many different elements of this in this show. We've kind of got Ares, the god of war.
Yeah.
We've got the dealings with the fates. We've got when they meet Aphrodite. We've got them being in a coma for 20, I think it's like 20 years, and then waking up when the Greeks are no longer in charge. It's now the Romans, and
Hmm.
it's just such a amazing blend of fantasy and supernatural, because it's not just fantasy. It's got a little bit more to it. I just really love how they kind of just show this women-led program and empowerment. And I think that's kind of what us as women kind of need every now and then. It's kind of like we just need those powerful messages of change and grow, and we can change our path no matter what our past was and stuff. And
Yeah.
it's one of those shows that even now I kind of think back and think, how was that made in the 90s? Like, we have shows in the 90s where we have actresses and actors, you know, denounced for their sexuality. They
Hmm.
are made to
Yeah.
wear skin tight clothes for views to speak on a sci-fi program that we both love and adore.
Hmm.
We've got those elements, and then we've got this amazing show that just highlights just what it is to be a woman. And I don't understand how the show has ever existed, but I am ever thankful that it is.
And to be honest, you know what? For like a show like that, yes, I know that obviously Xena is not fully armored, as in like a traditional male way.
Yes.
She still has a lot more than what you would put, say, in something like a Conan the Barbarian
Yeah.
type of scenario. She's still wearing more at that point than what traditionally you would see in, like, I don't know, the game Golden Axe, literally
Yeah.
a bra and pants.
Yeah.
Um, and you know what I really liked about it is, yes, Lucy, you know, put some muscle on to do the role and stuff like that. You know, she worked out and stuff. I don't want to focus on that side of things because that's down to her choice and stuff like that. But you could tell she was very toned, very athletic in her figure. But she made it look like she made Xena so much more than that. It was like Xena was impressive, like as a stature. Xena was a tank. If we're talking about like
100%.
traditional fighting roles, like you've got your bard, you've got your cleric, stuff like that. Xena was a tank.
Oh,
But
100%.
she wasn't huge. She just kind of like she gave off that aura, and I think that was kind of like a big part of like pushing that side of things forward. That I really liked about that, especially.
I think it's an amazing program, and I think I would recommend that everyone just go watch it again. I don't know where it is on because I watched my bits on YouTube, but I have seen adverts. I'm probably thinking it's one of those free episodes that you can get on Amazon, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. I've not seen it advertised anywhere really.
I've seen the adverts on the television, so I'm sure it's still on, it's still around. But yes. What about you, Sarah? What was kind of your first fantasy genre experience?
I don't think it'll come to like any surprise if I said the Dark Crystal or Labyrinth really for like early ones for me.
No, not really.
I mean, how could I not wear this for like the fantasy?
Yeah.
The fantasy genre episode.
I've got my little dragon.
Yay! But yeah, I mean, they were both out in the 80s. I'm an 80s child. No, I didn't see them when the first were released, but it was only like a couple of years after. You know, it's the adventures, there's castles, there's like a time limit to save the world, the fantastical creatures along the way, magic for Labyrinth, a crystal given power in Dark Crystal. It's kind of like those two with the never-ending story, the ultimate child, young adult introduction to fantasy, I would say, kind of like for those two.
100%, 100%.
Especially from the 80s.
Yeah.
I know you've got things like Mirror Mask and that coming into the 90s and 2000s and stuff, but for an 80s child, ultimate and legend as well. But I'm not going to go too much into the individual ones because obviously, like anybody who's part of Nerdy Up North knows how I feel about them, and I've covered them more than once. On here and on the main podcast as well. They're my comfort movies when I need an escape, basically. Yeah.
And I do think that fantasy is sort of very important to the pair of us because it's very much our defining personalities and things that we kind of take great pleasures from is these. Obviously you've got the one behind you, Dragon Age, and I've got my dragons. This is how it's something that we've kind of discovered in the last kind of weeks. Why we are besties? Dragons. Simple. That is the reason. Dragons. That's kind of what we've decided is dragons. But yeah, I kind of want to go into another one that I kind of want to talk on. It's not quite as out there as Xena, but it's a film that I think it was more my teenage moment and kind of defining of it, and it's Stardust, the film.
Oh right, yes, with a young Charlie Cox.
Yes, and that's another thing that I didn't realize.
I had to keep reminding myself that Charlie Cox is in that movie.
Yes, I didn't realize, and it was one that I was like, oh, this is another one where I'm pleasantly surprised. But it's just
It was a really good movie.
It's a really good movie. It's kind of it's a romantic adventure, and it's kind of fairy tale. It's based on a fairy tale, you know. It's a whimsical, dark fantasy, and it's just adorable. It's hilarious. There are some points in it I just kind of laugh out loud. And it's basically it's set between a village called the Wall, which is basically the border between the real world, which is the world that we live in, and the magical realm. And it kind of follows the journey of Tristan Thorn, who is on an adventure to retrieve a fallen star for his beloved, but he doesn't realize that the fallen star is it's a living being thing, and he kind of falls in love along the way, and I really just love this film because it's
Claire Danes,
just
isn't it, the star?
yes, Claire Danes, bless her. Yeah, it's like it's one of her bigger roles, I would say, before she kind of got into more action roles.
Yeah, it's kind of like a
She's
toss-up between that one and Romeo and Juliet for I think a big startup kind of ones.
yeah, I think Romeo and Juliet's probably the bigger role, but then this kind of was a little bit more mainstream, I think.
Hmm.
But
I
I
think this
kind of
probably was seen by more people.
yeah, and I just love this film. It's just such a cute film. And they like the fact that they are on adventures and they're going back and forth and just the changes, but you kind of don't realize that how many amazing actresses and actors are actually in it.
Yeah,
You've
it's
got
a
Michelle Pfeiffer, you've got
hell of a
Robert De Niro,
cast.
you've got Robert De Niro, and it's just yeah, it's one of those films. It's a who's who of
Hmm.
Hollywood at the time. And I find myself because I've watched it recently with my little one. The film's production around this, they had some dollar. It's the design, the special effects are
Hmm.
absolutely breathtaking for the fact that it's 2007. You've got magical landscapes, you've got flying ships, you've got enchanted forests, and it's just every little bit of it is vibrant. And I really kind of enjoy this film, and I would highly recommend that anyone who is kind of wanting to just have a little bit of fantasy and a little bit of escapism, just to get into it, because
Hmm.
it's just it absolutely excels in creating magical and creating a world that you didn't know you needed.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
it for the fact that it's what an hour and a half film, it
Mhm.
creates such an amazing world. That's both kind of like fantastical, but it's also kind of tangible that you can touch it. It's one of those ones, and it's a fascinating film, and I would recommend that people kind of watch it. And
Hmm.
yeah, and even I think the fact that it's got the humor, it's got the adventure, and it's the film has got kind of a lot of it's one of those films that I kind of would say it feels timeless because it
Yeah.
kind of still it feels like it was only just made a few weeks ago. It's one of those amazing films. But yeah,
To be
I
honest,
would
I was surprised when you said 2007.
yeah, I was really surprised. I was like, oh,
Hmm.
I don't remember watching it that long ago, but I actually watched it in the cinema when it first came out. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's one of those. But yeah, I would watch it. I would even if the fact that you're watching it just for Claire Danes and Charlie Cox, just to see how far they've come in their roles.
Hmm.
Yes. But what about you, Sarah?
Oh, I'm gonna have to give in to it at some point. Honey, I keep mentioning it. I keep mentioning it, but I'm gonna have like a proper little rant about it now. I am gonna bring Dragon Age into it. I am finally going to actually have my talk. Hi, Chris. Um, yeah, it's oh God, it's not going to surprise anybody really saying that. Um, uh, I'm always in awe when somebody or like a group of people working together can create a whole world from scratch. Um, and there's a whole history, there's different countries, there's different like continents, there's different factions, there's the whole cities to explore and um obviously you get to play as like loads of different types of people as well. Like you've got your generic humans, elves, and dwarves, but then you've also got like Kunari, who are like basically they're really tall, grey-skinned humans with like horns coming out of their heads. Um, and they've got their own religion and stuff. They've
How
just
many editions of this game have there been?
there's 4 Dragon Age games officially.
Yeah.
Um, obviously you've got Origins, which is where this picture's from. Um, you've got just Dragon Age 2.
Hmm.
You've got Inquisition, and then you've got the more recent one, Veilguard.
Okay.
Um, And in most of them, I mean, for me personally, I really liked the opening story to Origins the best because there's more to it. Who
Mhm.
you choose, whether it's a human, an elf, or a dwarf, and which class you play as, gives you a different story.
Okay.
So you can have different origin stories in this game. Yes, the story does kind of like come together and you have a main quest line after that, but
Yeah.
you've got a city elf, you've got like a Dalish elf, which is the wild elves out in the clans that still live in the forest. You've got like your noble human, your peasant human, and then you've got like upper class dwarves, castless dwarves. Um, you can't play as a canary in the first one or the second one, but you can play them in later
Okay.
games. But then again, it alters slightly depending on whether you're a warrior, a rogue, or a mage.
Yeah.
Because again, different factions. Um, especially if you're a mage, because they have um magic is kind of a funny thing in Dragon Age where they seem to be a little bit scared of the power that mages get. Some mages do hold positions of power, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But in Dragon Age, you've got like mages tend to be locked away in a tower called the Circle until they can control it, but they tend to just kind of live in the circle for the whole life.
Yeah.
People are scared of them being mean, of blood magic, becoming abominations, which is when they get possessed by demons, because then they're completely uncontrollable. So they've actually got a specialist, like specialist warriors who take care of the mages called Templars,
Okay.
and they take a special potion to become like immune to some of the magical effects that, like mind control and stuff.
That's
But
amazing. I really, every time you mention it, you can see how passionate you are about it. And I'm just like, I love this. I love this little world that's been created and the fact that you are so damn passionate about it.
The thing is, when I start talking about it, if I'm explaining it to somebody from scratch, as I'm trying to do here, I kind of go, well, there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this, and then there's this. But I'm trying to kind of make sense of it for
I
people who
think,
are listening
I
to
think, yeah, I
focus
think
on
it's
one thing at a time.
yeah, I think it's slightly easier for me because I do have a vague understanding of D&D. So I
Hmm.
think it's ever so, and it is very, very vague. Um, I think it's slightly easier, but I do think it's such an interesting game because I can see how passionate you are about it, and then I've seen other people and how passionate they are about it, and I'm just like, you guys are so adorable for this. I love it.
But yeah, anyway, like it's kind of like it brings in that fantasy of the first game, especially. You become what is called a Grey Warden, who are specialist warriors, who can fight what is called the Darkspawn and the Blight. Now, the Blight is something that comes around every so often, um, not like clockwork because it can be just random when it appears. Um, but it comes around every so often and it basically destroys the land, destroys people, and the only way to stop it is to get a Grey Warden to kill the Archdemon, which is often in
Okay.
the form of a dragon, and that will end a Blight. Darkspawn are basically like orcs. They're
Okay.
like people who are into Lord of the Rings, um, blighted creatures that just kind of run through towns and villages and just leave
Yeah.
the land black and dead.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, anyway, so you become a Grey Warden and you have your little friend Alistair with you, and you become the only two Grey Wardens left in this country.
Uh-oh.
And you've got to stop the blight. So you go around gathering all your little friends. You've got a few companions. You've got to gather the elves. You've got to gather the humans, and you've got to gather the dwarfs and the mages, and you've got to make them all come together and behave nicely and defeat the blight together. There's your adventure.
That's now you put it like that. I'm like, I know how bad it is trying to organize D&D.
Yeah.
I don't think I can handle that stress.
Um, but yes, I mean, Dragon Age 2 tends to go off a bit more on you're focused on one person, and although there is kind of like a civil war brewing in the town where you are, um, it kind of like between the mages and the Templars, it's kind of brewing and they all hate each other and that kind of thing. Meanwhile, you come to the town escaping the blight from the first game, and you gradually work your way up through the ranks and become like a noble of this town.
Okay.
But it's kind of the adventures you have along the way, and then you end up just getting thrust into the middle of everything in the end anyway.
Okay.
Um, Inquisition kind of brings Darkspawn a bit more back into it. Um, a particularly powerful Darkspawn tried to rip a hole in the sky, and loads of demons and all that are coming through, and you've basically got to go and fix the sky.
Awkward, yeah.
Again, gathering your companions. It's kind of like one of those things that you do in Dragon Age. You make friends with people. You can be a rival with them. It's fine, but they can still be in your party. You know, it's something where decisions carry on. You can make a decision in the first game that you will find has an effect in the third if you carry your save over.
Actions have consequences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah, it's things like you can kill a companion in the first game and miss out on a side quest in the third game.
That's amazing. I love that's a thing.
Mm-hmm. Depending on who actually kills the archdemon, because you have the option of you can kill them or Alistair can kill them. You have the option of putting somebody on the throne. You make a choice of who's the king or queen.
Right.
You can, depending on your choices, you can meet Alistair in different guises through the next two games.
Right.
So, for example, you might find him as the king in game 2 and game 3. And I mean, it's not so much carried on in the more recent game, Veilguard, but I mean, for me, Veilguard's a bit of a funny one. Don't get me wrong, I thoroughly enjoy playing the game.
Yeah.
The scenery is beautiful. I loved wandering around the cities of Treviso and Minrathous, and they are the main cities of those countries, and you will know about them from previous games or if you've read the books. But yes, I loved wandering around and seeing like the take on them and stuff. It didn't feel fully a Dragon Age game to me. I know some people were upset about like you weren't able to make like a wholly evil choice in this in the last one, but to me, it's kind of like there's a reason you were recruited for this mission.
Yeah.
And it's because you weren't evil. That's kind of why you could be funny about it, you can be arsey, but you're still making like a good choice.
But some people just like to watch the world burn.
Yeah.
And the game's not letting them. And
Yeah.
I can understand that one, but yeah.
But one thing I loved, again, you could still see things like they're even bringing things across from the books into the games and from the games into the books. Some of the books I've read the novels, tell you the history of it before the first game.
Okay.
So there was a certain general in charge of like an army.
Yeah.
You find out his history and how he came to be where he is. You find out about at the start of the game there is a king on the throne. You find out about his father. In the book, you find out how the Empress of Orlais came to be the Empress of Orlais in a different book. One of them is about the end of the fourth blight, because when you're in Origins, it's the fifth blight, so there's like been 5 of them so far. The end of the fifth blight, who was the Grey Warden that killed the archdemon, and you know they are buried in the highest of honors and stuff like that. They saved the world basically at that point.
Okay.
They are the ultimate hero of each blight.
Okay.
But then as you're wandering around in Veilguard, you find a statue to this person.
That's so cool.
And I love little things like that.
Yeah, I
the
love
tiniest details.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's little things like that. You would just kind of like, if you hadn't read the books, great, there's the person who stopped the fourth blight. But if you'd read the books and knew their story, you'd be like,
yeah,
that's the person who stopped the fourth blight.
Yeah.
That's how I was anyway.
Yeah, no, I love things like that. I love a little bit of canon development and a little bit of Easter eggs. I do love that type of thing.
Yeah.
But what has been your favorite storyline that you've done in Dragon Age?
Oh, you know what? I like the first one. just becoming the Grey Warden to save the world, you kind of like you're up against like everything because there was a betrayal at the start of the game, and everybody believes that the Grey Wardens are dicks, to put it plainly, now, and they should all be treated as traitors.
Okay.
So you've got a lot to like go against. Obviously, not everybody believes that because the Grey Wardens are kind of these heroes of legend.
Yeah.
You know, people train for years to go, I want to be a Grey Warden.
Yeah.
And you've got to be really into it because there is a thing in when you join them, you could die at the joining as well.
Okay.
So you've got to be really dedicated to be a Grey Warden to even try to get into the ranks.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think the original, because it kind of builds up to everything. I think it's the biggest build up of you kind of like wandering around a forest as like this little elf who's trying to like do some hunting, and all of a sudden at the end of the game you're killing an archdemon.
Go big or go home.
Obviously story in the middle. Bit of story there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I kind of really like that. Like, I think we're gonna have to do some streams of you doing that. With you playing it. I think we're gonna have to.
Oh man.
I think for Women's International Month, I think we're gonna have to
do some Dragon Age.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do some Dragon Age because it's you can see how passionate you are, and because obviously the Dragon Age box that you got, that was the box that you opened, that was Dragon Age, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I missed the special edition box for Inquisition, unfortunately. So I kind of thought, well, I've got to do it this time, haven't I?
Yeah. So what did you get in the box? For the people that haven't seen that video.
So if people haven't seen that video, we got a potion bottle, which is the potion bottle that you actually see in the game from Veilguard. There is a quiver, like to put arrows in, which I believe is the one that Harding has in the game. Yeah. It has a map of the world in it.
Cool.
There is Solas's dagger, which you will have seen if you've seen anything about it. It's the blue dagger that Solas carries around, or quite often you'll see Rook with it, who is your player character. There is what else was there in there? I've forgotten now. It's up on display on my bookshelf. That's why I keep looking up there. It's in a very pretty box. It's a big purple black shiny box that's on there.
I'll put the link to the TikTok video so people can watch it, because it is amazing, and I can remember watching it and thinking, oh my god, I want it all. I want it all.
There's not a lot of things that I'll actually go and buy merch for because they unfortunately can get stupidly expensive.
They can. It's so sad that how bad merch can get and how much it costs.
But I had waited more than like I'd waited 10 years for the next Dragon Age game, so it got to the point of I kind of have to do this.
Yeah, I don't begrudge you that, because I think you were so happy. I like seeing a Peach happy.
But yes, of course, one last thing about Dragon Age, it's got Kate Mulgrew in it.
Get it? We've mentioned her. This is the 10th podcast that we've mentioned Kate Mulgrew. I love it.
Yes, one of my favorite actresses in one of my favorite roles. The character of Flemeth is one of my favorite characters in fantasy, in whatever else you want to put her up against. And as I've even mentioned in one of our other podcasts, like one of the best speeches, the "We stand upon the precipice of change" speech is like one of the best things I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But I would like to point out, obviously, I am very sad to hear of the news that obviously with BioWare recently having laid off so many staff, and including a heck of a lot of the big names that have worked on Dragon Age, and some of the people that have actually written the novels. These are the lore experts they have got rid of. Trick Weeks, man. Cormier, they were the experts. I was devastated to hear about it, to be honest. But what I wanted to do with that, I didn't want to ignore it completely. I wanted to focus on the love we have for Dragon Age, and the love I have for Dragon Age is still there. It will always be there. I appreciate the work they have done on this. Yeah.
It's just sad. It's a sad time across the world, I think, with the amount of people that are being laid off and that. And it's sad. And I suspect it's going to be very, very frustrating for them because they probably, they've probably worked on this for how long has Dragon Age been out?
Some of them, well, Dragon Age has been out by what, 20 years now?
Because I mean,
Hang on.
some of them are.
Well, I mean, it's 10 years since Inquisition. No, well, 11 years now. Yeah, it must be something like that. 15, 16 years maybe.
I mean, it's a long time to work on a game and a
Mm.
game.
I know one of them in particular had worked for BioWare, who are the developers. Had been there over 20 years.
Not
Um,
good.
no, no, no. But I wanted to say how much I appreciated their work and
Yeah,
how much of a big influence Dragon Age has been for me.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, the amount of times I've gone back and played the games from the start, like I will start them from there and I will go through all three games until like Veilguard came out. I've just done two runs straight after the other of
yeah,
Veilguard and
yeah,
I'm ready to go back to the beginning.
yeah. It's just amazing that they're doing this at this time after the success of the newest game. But
Well, it wasn't really as successful as they wanted, but that's by the by, really, at this
yeah,
point.
it's
Um,
always the way with games like
mhm,
that. But
mhm, mhm.
yes, but
It did not
yes,
perform as well as they hoped, but you know, to let somebody like Trick Weeks go is a massive move, even considering that.
yeah, it's unfortunate. But yes, shall we move on to my kind of final pick, so to speak, in the
Please go
fantasy?
for it because I will fill the rest of the podcast with Dragon Age.
And it's kind of more of a this is a book. I'm bringing a book to the
Hmm.
table, and it's kind of a young adult book.
Right?
It's a book series written by PC Cast and Kristen Cast, and it's kind of a young adult urban fantasy series called House of the Night.
All right,
It's
I've not heard of that.
it's fantastic. I love it. I've got all the books. It's kind of it blends the sort of the traditional elements of vampire lore with a kind of coming of age theme. So you've got
All
school
right.
life, you've got a bit of
Mm-hmm.
romance, and it kind of it starts with there's tons of books, but it starts with the book called Marked, and it follows the journey of Zoe Redbird, who is a teenager who is marked as a vampire and begins her journey as a fledgling vampire at the House of Night.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a little bit different from the usual vampire kind of fantasy that we're kind of used to,
Right.
because all vampires in this universe start off as humans, and as teenagers, they are kind of they are chosen by the goddess Nyx,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and she kind of marks them with a crescent moon on their forehead, kind of like a tattoo.
Right.
And they kind of have to go through a really kind of intense and magical transformation. And not everybody survives this transformation
Like the
towards,
joining.
yes, yes, it's very much like this, but they kind of, not everyone survives to become a full vampire.
Mm-hmm.
So it
Mm-hmm.
kind of has like, it's what I like about it is it kind of has the traditional senses of vampires. So it has like the immortality,
Yes.
power, and sort of transformation, but it's really kind of got like spiritual themes as well, of
Mm-hmm.
like self-discovery and destiny. And kind of, I just love the character of Zoe Redburn. She kind of, you think in like the first book that she's going to be a Mary Sue, she's going to be powerful, she's going to be this, she's going to be that, and she is in a way, but she's written so well. She's really compelling and really kind of relatable.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that she has a special connection to kind of the goddess Nyx, and but she kind of grapples with very, very kind of normal teenager issues like relationships, friendships, self-worth, and but then obviously she kind of then has the issues of being a fledgling vampire, and the fact that she goes through so much personal growth. But I kind of just love the magical school setting,
Yeah.
because the House of the Night, which is in one of these, it's in Tosca in America. I can't remember what state it is. I can't remember what the state is, but it kind of has real world alternatives. in this. Like they kind of mix the real world and the universe that they've created in this story. And I think it's just, as someone who has really, really, really loved Harry Potter, I find this is such a better alternative.
All right, yeah.
I love the magical school setting. I love that as a fantasy kind of backdrop for any kind of story. But I can't deal with Hogwarts and Harry Potter.
Yeah.
There are so many issues around it. And this kind of storyline, it has those kind of concepts where the vampires have different houses, so to speak, because they've got different elements. So they've got earth, wind, electric. I think they've got loads of different elements that they kind of control, and there's that kind of concepts in it. And obviously, but I started reading this as a teenager. So obviously a lot of the things that happen in this book kind of happened to me in secondary school. It's a very complex book series, but I would recommend, if you can get hold of it, I would read it, especially if you're a woman, because it kind of very, very focuses on empowerment of young women.
All right, yeah.
Most of the characters in this book series that have any type of power are women, because it's a very women-led society, vampires. Because obviously they worship a goddess. It's not, they don't worship a god, they worship a goddess. And it's kind of, I just love it because it is very women focused. You've got the Zoe, she's presented as very strong. She's very capable of making difficult decisions. She's very empowered by things. And it's such an amazing world that PC Cast has built. It's got mythology, it's got magic, it's got supernatural, it's got various creatures like vampires, dark forces, it's got angels, it's got kind of different religions involved in it, and how they kind of mixed together in this world. And it's really like multi-dimensional. And the fact that the characters, they face struggles, dilemmas, personal growth, I absolutely love it. And I could talk about it all day, because it is just such a good book series. And I'm just absolutely gutted that the television show hasn't gone any further forward, because at one point PC Cast had the rights to make a television series, and it would have been absolutely amazing. It could have taken over like Supernatural and things like that, because there is so much material that they could have had from it. But very much like the days of old, when I'm trying to think of the television channel in America that used to have like all the supernatural programs.
CW.
Yeah.
The CW. Would have been a good CW fit.
It would have been a CW fit, because it's very much up there with Vampire Diaries, The Magic Circle. It would have, because they all came out at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's my fantasy pick done, because if I don't stop talking about it, I will be here all day, and I will just tell you about each individual book.
We can do that after the pod. We can do that after.
That will spoil it for you. But yeah,
Thursday, I think.
House of the Night series. Go listen and go watch.
Friday
and
tomorrow.
Go read and just do it all.
Number one has spoken.
YouTube and shop, get it.
Cool. I'll look at that. I mean, you mentioned Supernatural there. I absolutely love that, and a lot of people do hold that as fantasy, like in the way that there's a lot of fantastical creatures in it, and obviously there's angels and demons and witches and ghosts and Frankensteins and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's an amazing show.
Plus, who doesn't love a bit of like Sam, Dean and Cass, as well as Crowley, Bobby, Charlie, Rowena.
Yeah.
That's a one I could go on about. But I've actually chosen that's a whole different episode, that one. But I've chosen something a little bit different now. I'm quite new to this. I've only watched it recently. I've gone for a TV show on Netflix. It's only really been the last 6 months I've watched it. There are, I think it's 5 seasons now. There's just been a new one released very, very recently. And it's The Dragon Prince. It's an animated show on Netflix.
Not seen it.
it's aimed at children and young teens, but you know what? I really enjoyed the story, and
Yep.
the animation's good, and there's some great voice acting in it. You've got like proper strong Welsh, strong Scottish, like elves in there and stuff, and um, so it's about it's again it's a world built from the ground up. There were two kind of like areas that things lived. There's like the human side and there was an elf side. The elf side was magical and the humans wasn't so much. Um, Humans then found out that they could create dark magic,
Uh-oh.
which caused a lot of issues because the elves used natural things for the magic, like the sun, the moon, the ocean. Um, but yes, anyway, conflict ensures after that, and there's a warring factions. It's kind of like starting to die down a little bit by the time we join the story. There's a whole story about a dragon prince, who was just an egg at the start of the show. Like
Okay.
it's believed that the egg was destroyed during one of these wars, but
Okay.
then it gets found. And there's a quest to return the egg to the Dragon King. They reunite, some dragons be friends, some dragons be like, no, fire on you. Again, you've got different types of dragons that do electric and
We,
fire.
we, we, we love dragons.
We love dragons, we love dragons. There's lots of different dragons in this one. Anyway, while all that side of stuff's going on, there is a mage trying to bring back the ultimate evil wizard.
As you do.
As you do.
Classic trope.
Classic. And then in one of the main human cities, the king's assassinated. So you've got like a young prince reluctantly taking the throne and learning how to basically rule, while still being, I wouldn't even say he was a teenager. He was kind of like 10, 11 maybe at this point.
Oh.
So he's still trying to he tries to unite the elves and the humans against this ultimate dark wizard. It's got magic, it's got baby dragons, dragon fights. There's another prince who was like the brother of the one that's taking the throne, trying to master magic because he doesn't have technically the magical talent. Humans aren't born magical.
Yeah.
But he learns how to do magic. There's danger, there's heroic soul searching, there's many different types of elves with their own unique cultures. There's people in there that you think might be like, oh no, that person's going to be evil. They're going to like side they're going to side with their sister who has gone off to help with the evil wizard thing. Nope. He's staying true and good, like a proper true like cleric type character. But yeah, it's I mean, it was inspired. The creators were inspired by playing Dungeons and Dragons and consuming various fantasy media as kids. Like, they used to just sit there and discuss lots of different types of magic.
That's so cool.
That was a conversation for them. And
I would totally be friends with them.
Yeah. All of this has come together and they created the Dragon Prince out of it.
Love it.
And I just
Absolutely
think it's a great show. It has a lot of serious subjects in it, but it's quite an easy watch.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Which is sometimes what you need when it comes to fantasy, because not everything can be Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
We do not need a massive binge of Lord of the Rings. It can be simple. Fantasy can be simple. It could be as simple as playing your own version of D&D, playing a solo version of D&D. This is why I kind of love fantasy. It is one of those genres that you can go in and out of it, and sometimes you don't even realize that it is fantasy, because there are some programs that I was thinking, oh, I don't think it is, but then I've done some research and I'm like, actually no, it's got fantasy elements.
Yeah.
And I think people in the comments, you need to put in what is your favorite side quest of a fantasy genre. I personally love a little bit of romantic fantasy. I'm that type of person. I love a good book that's got a bit of fantasy and a bit of romantic. See, that's me. But I want to know what you guys think. What is your favorite side quest of fantasy? Because I think fantasy can always join up with something else and make it a bigger expedition.
Mm.
But yes, do you have any other ones? Any notable mentions?
Notable mentions. I don't really have any to hand actually for a change. I've kind of like I've mentioned quite a few through the
Yeah,
episode, to be
I
fair.
think I
I
think
think I've
I'm
mentioned more than enough.
yeah, I think I'm a little bit the same, you know.
Hmm.
I'm very, very, very much on the same kind of vein as you. But I
Hmm.
think we need to mention what we've kind of got planned for March.
I think that'd be a great idea.
Yes, because March we are planning to go a little bit big and we're not going home. We are going to be doing more episodes than normal because we want to
Go
celebrate.
big.
Go big or go home. We are wanting to celebrate Women's International Month because I think it's such an important subject, and the fact that this whole podcast is women led. And yes, it's not just all about women, but it's about two nerdy women from the northeast of the UK.
We're
And
nerds, we're women, we exist. Woo!
yes, and we very much want to celebrate women across everything. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of us. You're going to be seeing a lot more of us on TikTok and Instagram. We have a couple more episodes planned, and we might even have a cheeky Twitch stream from yours truly, if I can work out how to do it. I
If
might
I
need some
can do
help.
it, you can do it. I've done it before.
I might need some help. Chris has volunteered to help me, but he's only just started, so I might need a better grown up. But we shall see.
A more
But you
grown up,
will,
grown up.
yeah, I need a more grown up. I'm a grown up, but I need a more grown up. But yes, so we've got a bit planned, but we would love to hear if anyone has any thoughts, suggestions, whether they would like to appear, because we would like to talk to some more local women or non-local women. We would just like to talk to you. If you're nerdy and you're here, I think that's it. Yes. And
Stay tuned.
stay tuned because we have got some hilarious videos.
We've got some great ones this month.
We really do. And I think we're not going to ask for videos next month, other than we're going to ask for your favorite woman who's inspired you. I think that should be the one for
Yeah?
next month.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Let
woman
us
that's
know of a woman that's inspired you.
yeah. I think that's an important one for us for next month. But yes,
Could be anything from like your gran to, oh, I don't know,
your
Mum,
your favorite teacher at school.
your favorite teacher at school,
Yes,
Khaleesi, Amelia Clark.
yes. But until then, keep your hearts full and your fandoms absolutely fierce, people. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
You have my sword.
And my bow.
And my massive pill!
Oh, you've ruined it. Come on, get out of the way. Lord of the Rings is the best. Top grubs rule.
Hello, women of nerd culture. It is me, Paul. Yes, it is me, as you can see. So, I heard you were doing an episode on fantasy. Now, I do get a lot of shit from other people, mainly Lee and Chris, because they think I don't like fantasy. Well, I do. I just don't like Lord of the Rings. There's amazing fantasy out there, from Labyrinth, Legend, Game of Thrones, so many different aspects and like lore that I love. I love how deep and like how crazy fantasy can get. And one of the best fantasy films there is, The Wizard of Oz. That is the greatest fantasy film ever made, my opinion, and I'm sticking with it. So stay nerdy, and I love you, women of nerd culture. Yous rock. Bye.
Hello, women of nerd culture and everybody else. So this month you've asked for fantasy. Again, really, really difficult. Nearly everything that I love is fantasy, TV, films, everything. So I really found it difficult to decide on a film, so I've not went with one. Lord of the Rings was a very high contender, but I've absolutely adore Charmed, the TV programme. It aired in 98, I think it was, and the last season was 2006. So obviously I don't think it was very well liked when it first came out, but I absolutely adore this programme. Obviously, in magic instantly got my attention, but the way that they show the sisters obviously navigating the power of 3 in the magic world as well as the normal life as well, obviously, and everything that goes in between, all normal relationships, magic, spells, what goes wrong. And obviously there's a bit of a character change there in the middle when one of the sisters dies and another one's introduced. And at first I wasn't really keen, but obviously I got used to it the more I watched it. And I think it was great the way that the show, like, there was always something you could relate with in between the sisters. One of them always had something going on. And growing up as well, like sort of at first one of the sisters was my favourite, and then growing up a different one's been my favourite, and I think it's just something that absolutely has lasted with me, and I just don't think it really got the love that I think it deserved. So sorry, excuse the puppy. But yeah, so Charmed is my favourite. Magic, spells, obviously there's a bit of romance in there, which is not my favourite thing, but I do love the programme.
Hello, this is me and this is Simon. This is our take on fantasy, the fantasy genre. So for me, fantasy has always been like the ultimate good versus the ultimate evil. So when I think of fantasy, Lord of the Rings is a good example, but I'm sure many people will mention that. Star Wars is even a good example for me, but that gets covered quite a lot. So I would say stuff like Willow, where it's like someone who's like not your archetype hero, but he is actually a hero, and he's up against like the ultimate evil, and it's just his journey against that evil. And then like Legend, which again is like the bad guy, and that's perceived to be like the devil basically. And then you got like this band of little misfit characters up against this massive evil character. So for me, fantasy is these little people who you wouldn't class as being archetypal heroes overcoming the odds and defeating evil. That's what fantasy is to me. What's that? Oh, God, he says he prefers horror, but that's another day.
Let's cut right to the chase. There's only one thing I'm thinking of when I'm thinking of fantasy, and it's Lord of the Rings. Now, Lord of the Rings is packed to the brim with not one, not two, but 3 strong female characters. My pick is obviously this one. Despite being from a woefully underrepresented gender in the Tolkien universe, Eowyn accomplishes a lot. She's hugely important in Rohan society as the niece of King Theoden, tells Grima Wormtongue to shove it, blasts out some harrowing, sorrowful music at the funeral of her cousin Theodred, who looks after the people of Edoras during a pilgrimage to Helm's Deep, including making a wonderful stew for the men at the camp, falls madly in love with Aragorn, and who can blame her for that? She has her heart broken by Aragorn, and how does she deal with this? She puts on a helmet, disguises her identity, gets on a horse, whacks a little hobbit up front, taking Merry onto the field of battle, Minas Tirith, Battle of Pelennor Fields, following our king into battle in the vanguard, takes down an Oliphant, kills a fell beast, defending our king, and then gets a happily ever after, falling madly in love with Faramir, who's another person who just deserves some love. Also our brother's Judge Dredd. Am I forgetting something? Right, yeah. She kills the king of Angmar! She stabs him in the face! You know what, Eowyn? This one's for you.
I am no man.